Okay, welcome back to the Bitcoin School podcast. We are telling the stories of Bitcoin educators around the world. Today, I have a very special guest joining me live from South Africa with Bitcoin Ubuntu is here with me. Glenn, thanks so much for your time. Looking forward to connecting with a fellow light node in the global South. How are you doing today?
Hi, Trevor. Very, very well, thanks. Glad to be able to spend some time with you. Thanks for the invitation. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing great, doing great. Thanks so much. My question for a lot of our colleagues is, it's one thing to fall down the rabbit hole. It's one thing to become a Bitcoiner, but it's another thing to decide to want to teach and to put yourself out there and leave your comfort zone. So I guess if you could let everyone know the origin story of Bitcoin Ubuntu, how you fell down the rabbit hole, and how you got to where things are currently. Yeah.
Okay. Um, well, sure. I think, like a lot of Bitcoiners, I made my start just on learning about Bitcoin and speaking about Bitcoin and retweeting about Bitcoin on social media. So I guess, early on was watching Antonopoulos videos and reading on Reddit, and then we made our way over to Twitter and always just staying online and watching things play out. And there were events like Bitcoin Beach, and then here locally, Bitcoin Ikasi, and these various projects, community, voluntary, Bitcoin only, that were popping up like all over the world. And I'd hear other Bitcoiners go, "We wish we had that here," or so and so would come here, and I thought, well, kind of me too, but I can't wait for them to come here, so let me just follow their lead. And that's really kind of what got me started. That was barely 18 months ago now, about a year and a half ago. Kind of made my way from a non-Twitter reposter to uh, trying to teach people about Bitcoin, trying to help my community learn, how it offers us a massive opportunity if we embrace it
Yeah.
sooner rather than later.
So you're from the Antonopoulos generation, which I typically consider, 2019, pre 2019.
Yeah, I
When
mean, I was
was?
still learning back then. Mad Bitcoin, which is his name, Thomas, on YouTube. It was
Mhm.
very different back then than it is today. Much easier to reach Bitcoin signal now than back then.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's incredible the explosion of resources. Really, the last 12 to 18 months, books, online courses, self-identifying, Bitcoin educators. It's really incredible. John from Me Premier Bitcoin always says that education is the base layer. So this is all fantastic news because the heavy lifting, is indeed heavy. It's getting people off of zero is such a gargantuan task. You're largely spending your time online, interacting. For me, I love Twitter and YouTube has just been a free education for me. But one has to recognize that there is a echo chamber element to that. So, like, what was the spark, the impetus for you to leave the echo chamber, and to like have that desire to put yourself on the line and speak about such a bleeding edge topic to people that you're seeing on a regular basis in your local community in your region.
Great question. I think the urgency really was driven home for me due to the lockdowns. Uh,
Hmm.
the way those lockdowns played out globally and particularly here at home, it was looking like we were going to follow straight down that road where you wouldn't be able to go into a grocery store to buy your groceries if you didn't have the right QR code, which was terrifying to me because I'm not a person who likes to be told what to do, regardless of what it is or for what reason. So that's really kind of woke me up to how urgent this really is. We look at the current state of the world and the way the powers that be, the same people who have control over the money printers, have sway over what the rules are. And the thought of being that at their mercy um, woke me up it just ignited a fire under me. I realized that if I don't take action, the next time something like this takes place, I might well be at their mercy. And unless I go out and I build a network of fellow Bitcoiners who are prepared to, in a peer-to-peer fashion, do trade with me, I might go hungry or broke. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
that was ultimately led to us moving out of the city into the country and starting to try and build a community in a place where we're less easily surveilled, less easily policed, and where we can go and shake the rancher's hand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Man, I love that. Yeah, that's interesting. It's we'll never know, but it seems like the pandemic just minted an entire generation of new Bitcoiners. All of a sudden, our attention, we're made hyper aware of the concept of centralization, decentralization, and how fragile certain systems are, the downfalls of central planning, the coordinating uh, nature of money. A lot of concepts that are so pertinent in Bitcoin. All of a sudden, our focus, we had nowhere else to focus on. It seems like when the lockdowns and when the pandemic hit, especially people who, I don't know about yourself, but I've always been kind of a lifelong learner, just constantly curious. The pandemic is when my Bitcoin learning really hit hyperdrive. Why? I had didn't really have anything else to do. Let's learn about Austrian economics today. What is this? So maybe we can coin the term COVID Bitcoiner today. Thanks to the pandemic, we've just had this explosion of anti-central planning mentality, Keynesian, you know, economics, anti-centralized anything. Really kind of like brought to fruition a lot of concepts that were mentioned in the book, The Sovereign Individual. What was the one book, Anti-Fragile by
Taleb,
Nassim? What's it? I can't remember his name off the top
Nassim
of my
Taleb,
head. Yeah,
Taleb, I think. Yeah,
yep.
yeah.
Who is not so much a Bitcoiner these days, well, publicly. Oh, okay. So you fell down the rabbit hole yourself, and then taking those first steps to it, a lot of people don't realize, but like it when you're starting classes, when you're starting impartial community driven classes, um, that's a huge step to take, especially. I think in our last GA, you mentioned that you kind of consider yourself naturally an introvert. What did those first steps look like? I mean, are you just absolutely shitting yourself, thinking like, oh God, I never thought in a million years I'd be standing in front of a group of
Well,
people talking about this?
I wouldn't have. I really wouldn't have. And it wasn't my intention really to teach. When I was looking to find something to do in the Bitcoin space, I didn't set out to teach at all. I first started trying to use some of the design skills I already had, up those for UX, UI, for Bitcoin open source projects. But it wasn't what I was looking to do. And I helped out on a couple of other projects here and there, Bitcoin related, and nothing really clicked. And then it was when Pablo and Michael Peterson actually came through our town and they stopped for lunch, and I got to meet them. Uh, I
No
can't
way.
remember exactly.
Mike
I
Peterson
can't.
made his way to South Africa?
Yeah, yeah, they were on their way to Bitcoin Ikasi. So there's a tip for you guys. If you land in Cape Town and you're going to Mossel Bay or Witsundt, then we're on the way. You should stop here in Swellendam and say hello. So they did.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah,
Great.
I
Yeah,
can't
that's a two for
remember.
one.
Yeah, it was amazing. Plus, John, his son, so three for one.
Oh, amazing.
So yeah, fantastic. So those were actually the first real life Bitcoiners I met in the flesh, and that was 18 months or so ago. And I can't remember exactly what it was that Paco said to me, but it was enough for me to to do something. And I'd already been watching what Bitcoin Ikasi was doing, Bitcoin Beach, of course. I'd read the Bitcoin Beach white paper. What's it called? The Bitcoin, the bubble documents.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought I'm going to go ahead and follow their lead, and started working with a community-based project here, a soccer youth outreach project in Railton. In Still in contact with them, still working with them, but the progress is in painfully slow. Just by virtue of the fact that they have struggled to keep their organization, their team together. So they have a lot
Mm.
of staff turnover there, and it's more or less become a one-man show that he's trying to. Long story short is that we're just not really making very good progress with them. We still are. We meet up with them on occasion when they manage to get their board together, but it's gone from where when we met them six the beginning of last year, they would meet on a weekly basis as a board. They would make decisions, things would get done, to where now, if they get together once a quarter, you're lucky, and then not everybody's there. And so
Mm.
no decisions get made, no progress, no, it's just,
Right. The
so
underlying
unfortunately,
infrastructure is just wheels are coming off.
yeah, so they're still trying to get back up and running after a large number of resignations. So, in kind of not really making any real progress there, I had to look around for some other way to contribute towards Bitcoin adoption and education. And it was around that time. It was actually still while we were actively working with the board members of the Spurs, that I was looking for a curriculum, because we were teaching the board members about Bitcoin, the basics of Bitcoin. And it was around then that Le Premier Bitcoin had their open source their English translation of the syllabus. And so
Yeah.
that's when I picked up on that, and as probably one of the first independent projects to actually present that in person outside of El Salvador, because we did that early last year. We worked our way up to, I think, chapter 7 with the board members of the Spurs before their team fell apart. And
Amazing. Okay.
a number of those students moved off into other, to other things and other places. So it was sometime around that, after that met Felix, who had also, I guess, applied to be a light node. So we both at that point light nodes at Bitcoin. And so when he approached me with the opportunity to help him with presenting that material online, I jumped at the opportunity. And so I've done 3 online cohorts with him, or 2.5 with him. I joined him
Amazing.
about halfway through the first. And that's been a fantastic experience for me. It's really, I've learned a hell of a lot. I'm not, like I've said before, I'm not a natural teacher. I've pretty much thrown myself in the deep end. But I think between us, we're doing all right. We've got a whole bunch of graduates that have come out really, really passionate about Bitcoin and have moved on to projects of their own.
Man, amazing. There's no drug on earth that compares to orange pilling someone else and seeing them just kind of take and run with it. The reach of what's going on at the core has transcended the African continent. You You guys are doing great work.
It's amazing. Yeah, there's projects now in Afghanistan, Haiti. We even had students in El Salvador, which,
Come full circle.
yeah,
Yeah, I guess it's your story is and mine as well is like you know, I'm not a native Spanish speaker. You know, of course I can speak about Bitcoin in English, but you know, essentially just taking that first step to kind of get out of your comfort zone. I think in the Bitcoin world, in the current state of affairs, it's just so rewarding to take that step. And you know, as long as your mentality is to kind of just simply be the person that's pointing people in the right direction, you know, it's you're not the sage on the stage, you're the guide on the side. You know, simply taking someone's hand, if you will, figuratively speaking, and just pointing them to concepts that are self-revealing. It doesn't matter if whatever you're a captivating public speaker or whatever. Like these are concepts that that people will grasp, and it's so rewarding to see that light bulb uh, go off in their head. So anyone out there who's kind of on the cusp, you know, of how do I get involved, how do I, especially now with, you know, online classes and whatnot, like the barrier to entry is lower than ever. So I guess this would be a call to action for anyone listening to this, especially if anyone's in Glenn's area who would like to get involved, to simply just take that first step, because it's so rewarding. It's addictive almost, you know.
absolutely. I mean, I think of it as it's like a leap of faith, really, and I haven't looked back. You know, it's been, like I say, a great learning experience for me. I've grown a lot, but by deciding to do this, I have put myself out there, despite the fact that I was a homebody introvert. I realized I would have to go and appear on interviews and speak to people about what I'm trying to do. And in doing that, I ended up introduced to Twitter Spaces, which I now have been hosting my own, or well, not my own, but a community-based run space for a year and a half. And all of that over the last 18 months has just it's been an incredible learning experience for me. And so, come back to what you said earlier about whether or not you love to learn. And I do. If I'm not learning, I get bored and I move on to the next thing. I feel like throwing myself into this area where maybe I'm not completely at home and not completely comfortable, by
Yeah,
challenging myself, I'm so much more rewarded and there's so much more potential for growth, that I haven't looked back. It's been an amazing experience, and
yeah,
I would
yeah.
recommend people just do that. Take the leap of faith. Follow your gut, and the the first you might not land where you think you're leaping, but leap
Yeah,
anyway. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's this. It's for me. It was this feeling of like the water is boiling, and it just kind of. I had to go with it. Like it was just this sensation where I'm just like, you know, I'm 42 now. I was working in a peak fiat job as a mortgage brokerage owner in the US. And I'm like, okay, I want my life's force to be devoted to raising all boats, you know. It's just this like convergence of yes, I'm naturally curious. I love constantly learning. And I don't know about you, Glenn, but like I'm viewing Bitcoin as like this emerging science. You know, it's this convergence of so many uh, disciplines. You know, you have economics, you have the technical side, distributed systems, cryptography, but you have this jumping into Bitcoin education is this convergence of so many different areas where the end result is a more just, anti-fragile, stable world. And there's nothing better. Obviously, a little bit biased here, but there's nothing better to devote one's efforts to. So if you'd like to talk a little bit more about this, it's called the Orange Sun Spaces. What's going on with this regular Spaces?
So
Are you
this
just
where
free
we
flowing on Twitter? What's
it,
going
it
on
is
here?
it is it is more or less. It's a little less structured maybe than, well, a lot less structured than something like Bitcoin Magazine or Swan. It's very much more just kind of a regular space where Bitcoiners get together to talk about Bitcoin for 2 hours a day, every weekday, because nobody around us wants to hear any more about Bitcoin. So we all get together. We try and keep it on topic. We get occasionally, we get special guests. So next week, for example, is going to be a good week. We've got 4 days of special guests. We'll have Felix Makunga on Tuesday with
Yeah,
Master Guantai on, I think he's on Wednesday. We've got Kester working on a project in Nigeria on Thursday. We've got a whole group of guys from Bitcoin Reach in Zimbabwe joining us on Friday. So those make for some of the best spaces. Is when we have special guests, then we stay on topic, and we're going to look at doing more of that going forward. So it's the same
I
as
love it.
everything else I've been doing. Is you kind of learning and adapting as you go. So I think the Orange Sun spaces, we took it over from Satoshi's journal. It's now run just by um, a handful of volunteers, and it's kind of slowly become its own thing, and it's getting better and
Amazing.
better. We get overwhelmingly positive feedback from our. We got a very small but loyal audience, and the feedback we get is overwhelmingly positive in that we do try and stay focused on Bitcoin. We are maybe a little bit more. We use a little bit more discretion as to who gets up on stage and what we talk about.
Okay.
So it's not as
Yeah.
much. It's not as much madness as you might find in a typical
Right.
Twitter space. Yeah, and then of course we have it in the time zone that caters for Africa specifically.
Right.
So we get Europeans and we get some Australians, but we have specifically that time slot, 6 to 8 UTC for Africa. And then we also do on
Amazing.
the 21st in the evening we do a Bitcoin in Africa space as well. So that's why we have a much smaller audience as well than the bigger shows that happen over in the States later in the day where they get hundreds of listeners. We get
Hey, for
dozens
now.
maybe,
For
but uh,
now.
but they're recorded, and we get people going back to listen to some of the recordings, and we just get a lot. I think one of the biggest values that we add is that we give a very different perspective. We give a voice to Africa when it comes to Bitcoin. So we often get um, the kind of early exclusives on new projects that are happening in Africa. Master Guantai will sometimes save announcements specially for us. And then we get everyone outside of Africa. Also, we get core contributors. Portland Hoddle will come in there sometimes, and he will just lay down some Bitcoin Alpha and technical. He'll answer noobs'
Incredible.
questions. Yeah, you got to core contributors and really incredible list of different people that pop in and contribute to the conversation. So I could
Holy
definitely
cow.
recommend it.
Yeah. So anyone within the African time zones, they can get off work and
It's first thing in
click
the
on
morning.
Twitter.
It's a breakfast show.
Oh,
Yeah, so
6 to 8 a.m.
it's 6 to 8 a.m. Yeah.
Woo! Rise and grind.
Yeah. Well, it's eight to 10 in South Africa. If you're West Coast, it's a bit
Okay.
later. East Coast a bit earlier, but it's so anywhere from 7 to 10 depending on where you're in Africa. Nice and early. And we get updates from all kinds of Bitcoiners all over Africa working on all kinds of different things.
Incredible. So cool. Someone
And one
can
of
wake up,
the
have their coffee, and enjoy some high signal Bitcoin alpha on their way to work.
And not just that, but networking. There's lots of
Yeah,
networking and crossover happening there. People running, finding out about each other and collaborating, and great little
yeah,
space.
yeah. So I was just looking. Your guest next week from Nigeria, he's working on Blink. So that's a little.
No, He just contributed an article. He's written for the blog, I believe,
Gotcha.
one or two articles for the Blink blog.
Okay. And you yourself recently cranked out a tutorial for connecting BTC Pay server to Blink, huh?
Yeah, I want to redo that one actually. It was
Okay.
just a quick one on Loom. I'll see if I can do it better just now.
Hey, I found it extremely useful for what it's worth. I literally followed the steps and it turned out great.
It's easy. It was so easy, isn't it?
So yeah, the spaces is taking on a life of its own. Huh? Sounds like
Yeah,
there's a huge need.
I would like to take a step back at some point. It does consume a lot more of my time than I would like every day. But for the time being, I'm happy to keep it going. But I'm hoping during the course of this year we'll have more volunteers step up. We have a few announcements to make in that respect soon. It's volunteer run, so nobody's in charge or anything like that.
Right.
And I would like to take more of a back seat going forward so that I can start to concentrate a little bit more on local outreach.
Yeah, understandable. That's another element that people's eyes get open to in the Bitcoin community is just the power of the open source mentality. Buddy is rowing in the same direction. Many hands make the work light, and it's almost like you're touching a lightning rod. There's so many people that are just chomping at the bit to get involved and to make their contribution and looking to take that first step themselves. It's quite the break from the fiat world, where things remain siloed and there's almost like this. You look at the other person as potential competition, whereas in the Bitcoin world, everybody's a potential collaborator. In all reality, it's really cool to see that that's really taken off so quickly.
I mean, look at how much stronger Me Primer Bitcoin that project is for the collaborative open source nature.
My
I mean,
gosh.
how far it's come in the couple of years. It's just that, I mean, that's the power of open source education there.
Uh, gosh, I think we're looking at it's like 2 years and some change, maybe, and it's just been an absolute rocket ship. Would love to get some of the guys from El Salvador on the podcast eventually, but I imagine they just kind of there's John and Adam, they kind of sit back and they're just like it's a spectacle to behold, just this. But it's truly like they take a lot of the structure of the network from Bitcoin principles. Like they're devoted to keeping things open source. The nodes can take on their own personality slash branding, whatever you want to call it, as long as the nodes are acting within consensus, which is, to be honest, it's pretty loose. You just need to be Bitcoin only, free and impartial Bitcoin only, and from there you have the artistic license to express yourself and solve problems in the local sense, however you see fit. It's truly like it's as opposed to trying to maintain a stranglehold on content creation or like curriculum production. They recognize early on that or really it's a tip of the hat to the true nature of Bitcoin, mycelium of sorts. It just
Mm.
finds its way into every nook and cranny, and so all you can do is just kind of hope to seed, into fertile land. So you mentioned that gosh, what's his name? Master Wantai? Is that how you say his name?
I'm still struggling with that a year and a half later. Master Guantai, I think so. Yeah,
Master.
that's what
So
I call
you
him.
mentioned that he'll kind of pop off projects and developments and whatnot. What are some interesting projects you've come across recently coming out of the African Bitcoiner community that you'd like to potentially shed a light on for the rest of the world?
Well, obviously I'm biased, so the ones that are exciting me the most are the local ones.
Uh huh.
I mean, just in the last 6 months, we've had, or maybe a year, we've had Bitcoin Loction, who we're working with now with our first cohort. So they join us as a group from its informal settlements. It's the big one, Khayelitsha. When you land at the airport in Cape Town, and you see all those shacks on the other side of the highway. That's
Yep.
Khayelitsha. That's where these guys are based. So they all get together in a shack. Most of them, don't have their own
Yeah.
computer and so on. So twice a week, they meet up at least twice a week, and they have done for a few months now, I think. Already worked their way through the Trezor Academy content, a lot of them together, and now doing the Premier Bitcoin with us remotely. So they meet up in a shack there, and then we're currently presenting that to them. Very excited to see where that goes. That's Bitcoin Loction, and that's run by one of the alumni from Bitcoin Dada, which of course is another fantastic African
Yeah.
Bitcoin only education project focused on women in Africa. They've done phenomenal work in the last 2 years, and they just keep
Amazing.
going and just keep getting better and keep getting bigger and expanding to other territories. So super excited to work with one
I
of
know
them.
exactly where you're talking about. I've been to Cape Town 4 times myself, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, well,
Very
just pop in
cool.
next time you're in the neighborhood.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
we also got Bitcoin Soweto. So Soweto is pretty much Joburg's Khayelitsha, a massive, massive informal settlement. They are hoping to join us next week. In fact, so I'm hoping on the second cohort we'll get set up so that they can also start joining us remotely from Soweto. And if we can have more of that happening, that would be fantastic. There's a few other projects here. There's a guy called Why Bitcoin. He's made it really simple and straightforward for people to onboard merchants. He's got a knack for it, and he's open sourced that knack and he's told people how he goes about it. What else we got? I mean, of course, we got Bitcoin
very cool.
Cassie, we got Vitsant, and then I think most exciting to me is the education projects. People like Master Guantai now also applied as a light node. He's doing that diploma course, in his style, social media,
Yeah,
TikTok, aimed at his demographic, which is fantastic. That kind of targeted education in native languages, and that's happening all over the show now. We got like the guy joining us, Kester, on from Nigeria on Thursday. He does Bitcoin Pidgin, so he teaches Bitcoin in Pidgin, which is widely spoken dialect. So, I mean, the list of projects in Africa, there you got grid lists. So you got mining projects, you got education projects, you got circular economy projects. It's just there's the African Bitcoiners on Twitter. They do a quarterly infographic of the African continent that labels all the different projects, and that there's just an explosion of new projects every quarter when they do the map. There's more.
yeah,
I, the list is
yeah.
just I can't keep track of them all.
Right. It would be a full-time job keeping up with
Yeah,
the explosion. Yeah, I've seen the same graphic. You see kind of Bitcoin Beach being kind of the first circular economy slash educational initiative. Then the second generation led to three or four. The third generation, I mean, you're just looking at exponential exponential growth of these awesome initiatives who every single one is like a fingerprint. They have their own approach, their own style, their own uh, priorities, if you will. Man, so
decentralized.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. My roommate used to work for an automated car company, and he would always talk about people that are involved in that industry are super bullish on that technology taking root in places like Africa, or places where there really isn't too much auto infrastructure, because it's so much easier to encourage the growth of new technologies where there simply isn't an existing paradigm to undo. And it seems like in Africa, in the same vein where banking infrastructure is essentially non-existent, where private property rights are minimal at best, it seems like this is that, largely speaking, on the continent, a technology that delivers private property rights and banking from one's pocket. We're seeing, I believe it's called Manchakaru,
Mashinkura,
Manchankura,
Mashinkura, yeah.
where you don't even need to have a smartphone. You can be transacting from your chocolate bar Nokia phone, from those indestructible Nokia phones that we all love so much back in the day. It seems like it's just like a wildfire that has been started in a situation where this technology is so sorely needed. I guess like a big signal is also looking to like Jack Dorsey's investment in the continent. These people recognizing just the immense potential that Bitcoin has on the African continent.
There,
It's so
there is so much untapped talent here. It's unbelievable. If we look at Mashinkura's developer, for example, also looking at releasing an extremely cheap way to turn that same phone, that same old Nokia brick, into a signing device so that you can take
my
possession of your
gosh,
own keys and you don't have to use his custodial service. And these are solutions that are coming out of Africa because they're needed in Africa, because self custody is expensive in Africa. And so the incentive is there for Africans to build cheaper solutions. And there are smart Africans. And when
yes,
we put the right tools and right education in their hands, they're going to build unbelievable tools that we can only begin to imagine, can't begin to imagine.
yeah,
So it excites me to see things like B Trust builders that are enabling that kind of technical education and to get people in Africa really building on Bitcoin. I think
yeah,
that's super exciting as well.
yeah. Coming from someone living in Argentina, I'm finding myself increasingly just fascinated by some of the solutions coming out of Africa, because we're essentially in the same situation here in Argentina, where you know having a $150 signing device is it's a non-starter. You know, so projects like Seed Signer, where if someone may not have the capital to buy their hardware wallet in one go, they can buy the Raspberry Pi at first, save up for that, and then save up to buy the camera module. These approaches to solutions that scale to the global south so well. Another project is the BitAxe project. Are you familiar with the BitAxe project? It's kind of the
Yeah, the little home miners.
yeah, the lottery miner
Yeah,
project. That's solving the mining centralization issues, that is really lowering the barrier of entry for people who want to learn more about proof of work. And, we're going to be doing workshops on simply stamping seed phrases into steel. Technologies that really scale to with in economic terms, bottoms up manner. These approaches where where it's kind of like similar to like people finding ways to like install Linux on old computers. These technologies that really, in my opinion, are they're more pertinent than some of the fancier with all the bells and whistles projects coming out of the quote unquote first world. Bitcoin, the real adoption is going to be coming from the global south, the unbanked, the people that truly need private property, banking. I would encourage anyone who's listening, from the U.S., from Europe, et cetera, to really like focus on what's going on in the global South. What the projects are, the problems they're looking to solve, and to really like pay attention to the young developers down here, because that's the highest signal um, activity going on in Bitcoin, in my humble opinion. So yeah, those are several projects, initiatives going on. I guess I'd like to like kind of dig a little deeper, if you've come across any tools that have a lot of potential for adoption in the current state of affairs in Africa.
Well, you already mentioned Bashan Kura, which is, it is a custodial service, but those can be extremely useful in to somebody who
Yeah,
has no access to any kind of banking or payment rails at all. So um, I think, probably like those crypto guys you were talking about earlier, there are Bitcoiners that have a very fundamentalist view of Bitcoin, especially when coming from a privileged first world viewpoint of of the tool, whereas people in Africa are a little bit more open to adapting the tool to their needs. So like you said, Mashin Kura is a perfect example of a tool, a creative way of using Bitcoin to solve a problem in Africa. And I think Africa is open to looking at things like federated systems a lot more openly than are perhaps somebody from a more first world perspective, because they do lack access to financial instruments and that sort of thing. So I think you'll see a lot more exploration of those sort of systems, given the current limitations of scaling Bitcoin. Definitely, from looking at the what's coming out of projects like B Trust Builders, there's a lot of focus on things like federations and scaling using federations, and privacy. Huge importance in Africa.
yeah,
So those sort of tools, I think, are going to be fundamental going forward. And I think we're going to see a lot more building on those fronts.
yeah,
On the ground, the things that we've been using, just kind of to change tack a little bit, um, with the online teaching, obviously, we making use of those Google Classrooms that my Premier Bitcoin set up for us. We're also making use of Android Studio to present mobile interfaces remotely to people. That way we can walk them through the installation on a handheld device on their screen. That's
cool.
been very useful. What else? OBS, been using, is that what it's called, for screen recording? Going to be using that a lot more for recording tutorials instead of relying on things like Loom. Then, in terms of merchants onboarding, a useful tool we discovered recently, and that's thanks to Why Bitcoin, that merchants onboarding guy here locally, is you can actually buy like a little QR printer. They're only about this big. They cost, I don't know, they'll probably be cheaper over there than they are over here, with they cost the equivalent of about $30. I expect they'll be, half or a third of that in the States. He's been using that just to print out the QR code for the merchants. So if you've got your Blink QR code, or now I think you can use a Bolt 12 invoice with a self-custodial wallet like Phoenix. You could
Cool.
just print out that Bolt 12 QR code, and you can put that on their table tent, or on their wall or on their counter,
Yeah.
whatever. Something like that is very useful if you are looking to onboard merchants, because you're basically walking in
Right.
prepared to have them up and running before you leave 5 or 10 minutes later. Tools like that just to make the onboarding process easier for people are I mean,
Yeah. The Bolt 12 emergence is huge for me premier Bitcoin nodes as well. You can just throw up your QR code on your website or wherever you are on your socials, and it makes accepting donations so much more plug and play, so much easier. Yeah, I think so. We've got Phoenix has adopted it. I believe Bolts is going to be. It's on
Zeus is going to
Zeus.
be, I think. I don't think it is
Okay.
yet.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe it is, but I think it's definitely
Okay.
coming.
Yep. Yeah. I've recently become a big fan of the Mutiny wallet. I'd love to see them adopt that as well. I imagine it's just a matter of time before we see Bolt 12 the being widely adopted. I believe if Bolts adopts Bolt 12, which I yeah they will, then consequently the Aqua wallet as well will have that functionality as well. Yeah, because we're here in Argentina. We're looking to launch an initiative with all the kiosks here, the little convenience stores. We're hoping to launch an initiative where Bitcoin payments are accepted in all the kiosks with some of these tools that unfortunately, the reality is people need to be able to pop between stable coins and Bitcoin for little to no fees to kind of uh, withstand the volatility. People here are living on a razor's edge, but the convenience stores here are having to charge 10% surcharges to Visa and Mastercard purchases because those companies do not like doing business in Argentinian pesos currently. So they're yeah, it's crazy. Some places will charge 15 to 20. It's insane.
Well,
So that's actually a great opportunity for us where there's a huge pain point for these vendors, and simply saying, hey, you know, it's gonna take out a lot of the friction that a lot of these people looking to uh, pay with cards or pay with Bitcoin, etc. You're just opening up. It's just another tool in your toolkit. In South Africa is Azteco. Azteco. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce it. Is that widely used? Azteco vouchers.
yeah, I don't know that I'd say it's widely used. And it was available for a while, that you could redeem as takeover vouchers for Bitcoin, and then I'm not sure exactly why, but for a year or so, that's that service kind of stops. And I see it's back now, so you can use Azteca
Oh,
again.
very cool.
It is pretty cool. It is pretty cool. But it
Yeah,
isn't very widely used.
gotcha. Yeah, I just found out literally yesterday that they're coming to Argentina. Really interested to see what plans they've got in store. Because here in Argentina, it's still largely a cash economy. People do not want to keep their funds in the banks, nor do they want Big Brother finding out about any of their financial activity. That's part of the reason why we're in the situation we're in here. People vote for huge socialist measures and then don't pay taxes. You're burning the candle at both ends there, screwing things up doubly.
On that, so just going back to that, the Azteco vouchers. I don't know. Have you had a look at the Blink reseller option now? Because I mean
I
that
have not
basically,
actually.
I think that could potentially be quite big in places like Africa because it turns every Bitcoin holder potentially into a voucher dispenser. You can just resell vouchers from Blink.
Oh, interesting.
And then that way, I don't know if you know, but to be an Azteco reseller requires quite a capital investment. So it prices most people
Yeah.
out of reselling Azteco vouchers. Whereas now
Yeah.
with what Blink is doing, anybody can do it with you know, the tiniest amount they can get started as a reseller.
So Blink is essentially creating like a pool of liquidity that can be redeemed through vouchers.
I think you can resell your own liquidity. I don't think they're providing
Aha.
I'm not sure. I haven't taken a close look at it. To me, that was the assumption I made, was basically there's the facility for you to resell your own liquidity at whatever markup you deem fair.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So you can
Interesting.
then
Yeah.
compete with Azteco, whatever the markup might be there locally for you. Maybe it's a 5 or 10% premium
Right.
on Azteco. You could then undercut that by a couple of percent and still make money.
Yeah. Easy. Easy. Yeah. And the buyer is getting KYC free sats, which always kind of carry a little bit of a premium, which is in my humble opinion well worth it. Yeah, I was seeing the POS terminals for Azteco are like $300 or something like that, which is that's a month's wage here in Argentina. That's a non-starter for a lot of people. I wonder. I'm
Yeah, you're
jumping
going to
on a
have to
call
sell
with
quite a lot
them.
of Bitcoin. You're going to have to sell
Yeah,
quite a lot of Bitcoin at a 5% markup to pay for that thing.
yeah. My gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm jumping on a call with them next week. So that'll be one of the questions I've got for them. I imagine they've got to have some sort of solution in place for that because yowzers, $300 terminals are like to compare Mercado Pago, which is kind of our that's our like PayPal, our Venmo here
Hmm.
in Argentina. I think if they don't give the terminals for free, it's something like $10 or something like that to put it into perspective. They recognize that, hey, if the vendors don't have the terminals, they're not going to be making sales. Azteco's gotta compete with that. Gosh, Mercado Pago here flips on the Bitcoin switch, at any moment. My gosh, everybody's going to be dealing with Bitcoin at a moment's notice. Just kind of waiting for regulatory clarity on that front. Because we're largely here in Argentina, the largest bill that we have is worth a dollar 40 currently and plummeting rapidly.
Whoa.
So even just using cash, I mean, my roommate paid rent in cash, and we're talking like mountains of bills. It's becoming physically unwieldy to deal with pesos down here. So it's a
That's
rapidly
wild.
evolving situation. Like you see we've all seen the memes of the bolivars in Venezuela with the wheelbarrows full of bills and whatnot. I mean,
Zimbabwe.
yeah, yeah. And I'll never forget my first layover in Zimbabwe when I was a flight attendant. Millions of the local currency that added up to like 20 US dollars in total. My gosh. So yeah, we're hurtling towards that down here. So I always tell people we're kind of in a sprint in Argentina.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're jogging behind you. I don't think we're that far behind. I mean, it hasn't got as bad as what you're describing, but it's a matter of when, it's,
Right,
and how quickly.
right, right. Yeah, my best friend's a financial journalist out of the UK with strong South Africa ties, and he was mentioning that actually the rand has a significant amount of gold backing to it, which is providing a little bit of stability. Supposedly,
Nah,
right? You can
no,
never.
it's a fiat currency like any other. There's no gold backing the rand. No, no. I mean, the central bank might have some gold, but so do lots of other central banks. It's not backing the
Right.
fiat currency in any way whatsoever.
Wait, Glenn, are you insinuating that the BRICS countries. Are you insinuating that that project is dead on arrival? Big
We'll
if true.
see. I see there's big news coming out of there now this week. They announced the what's the M Bridge. M Bridge is going live. But yeah, I mean Zimbabwe, the new ZiG is supposed to be gold backed. You're gonna trust them. I think it's like the fifth or sixth currency in our lifetimes.
My gosh. Yeah, let's give this gold standard another go. You can trust us this time.
Yeah, this time it'll work.
My gosh. Wow. Holy cow. What a time to be alive.
It is an
Well,
exciting
Glenn,
time. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. But more bullish than ever on the African Bitcoin community and just the incredible amount of proof of work going on from all corners. So cool to hear. So yeah, we'll have links and descriptions for everyone about a lot of the stuff we've mentioned here over the past hour, in case you'd like to click on things and dig a little bit into these communities, these projects that are going on in the global South. I know as an English podcast, we're probably going to have a lot of listeners from the northern hemispheres. Please take the time to look into some of those projects. Glenn, it's been great to have this hour to get to know you a little bit and get to know what Bitcoin Ubuntu has been up to. And honestly, the Twitter Spaces little initiative seems to be really, really awesome. Has a lot of potential as well. If you don't mind, I would love to do this again in about 6 months or so. We can check in and take the temperature of how things are progressing in your corner of the world. The pleasure would be
absolutely.
all mine.
Absolutely, yeah. I'd love to come back and we can catch up in 6 months, see how we're doing. And then also open invitation to you to come and tell us about what you're doing and catch us up at the Orange Sun. You know, periodically, you can book a time if you like, or you can just pop in ad hoc and let us know.
I'd love to. I would love to. Sign me up. Yeah.
Same to all of your listeners. I mean, anybody working on interesting Bitcoin projects out there, even if you've spoken to us about them before, come and give us an update. We'd love to have you.
Yeah. Open mic. Open mic. Yeah. Any of our colleagues from the Mi Primer Bitcoin network, yeah, hit Glenn up and collab. So hey, thanks for your time, Glenn, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks, Trevor. Great spending time with you. See you next time.
All right. Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.